Global business news around the world and across the markets. Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you are thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
It's Tune In Sports on this day. March 31st, 2004, New York Yankees starter Kevin Brown becomes only the second pitcher in MLB history to have beaten all 30 teams.
Got him over the outside corner. An 11 strikeout night for Kevin Brown. They win it on the arm and of Kevin Brown here tonight. Overwhelming performance by Brown.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on Tune In.
Like what you're listening to? Want to make getting back to it easier? Use the favorite button to keep track of the stations and podcasts you love on TuneIn. Just tap or click the heart icon to add it to your favorites. Then find all your go-to audio under the Favorites tab. Pretty easy, right?
Not all heroes wear capes, but most wear tights.
And here we go. It's underway. Cover on Rowan. Wait a second.
Keep up with everything happening in the wild world of pro wrestling with the TuneIn podcast. For expert analysis of the latest WrestleMania, turn on the WWE podcast. Or listen to the Steve Austin Show for no-holds-barred conversations with wrestling's biggest personalities.
It's good to be here tonight. It's an empty building.
For these more, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling.
On this week's On the Media, we are awash in messages, but some messengers are more effective than others.
Ventilators, ventilators, ventilators. We need 30,000.
Meanwhile, some media outlets choose not to air the president's press briefings live, and media critics ponder what's the right balance between good information and all information. All that and more on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
Leave it to the New York Times to make the most intelligent pop music podcast out there.
Welcome to the New York Times Popcast.
On the Popcast, the Times music staff gets together for a weekly roundtable on the hottest topics in popular music. From award show autopsies and reactions to new releases to difficult-to-process scandals and emerging themes in the music landscape, hear distinguished music critics share their perspectives on the latest music news, songs, albums, and artists of note on the New York Times Popcast. Search and favorite Popcast to join the conversation.
Success. Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at Babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
U.S. stocks come off earlier losses and actually move into positive territory. The benchmark for American equities is down, however, more than 18% for the year as measures to fight the pandemic shutter large parts of the economy. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P 500 is now up 0.2%, up 6. The Dow's up 0.4%, up 86. And the NASDAQ is up 0.8%, up 63. The 10-year is up 16/32. The yield 0.67%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is up 3.1% at currently $20.72 a barrel. COMEX gold is down over 1%. That's $16.2660 an ounce. Dollar yen, 108.17. The euro is $1.0966, and the British pound $1.2434. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
If you listen really closely, you can hear the helicopters hovering above you, ready to drop some cash. That is sort of the feeling out there as the U.S. government passes one stimulus effort, or bailout effort, if you want to call it that, that will deliver checks to Americans. Already in the works is yet another one. And the question that I have been having persistently is this inflationary or deflationary? Ira Jersey has a very strong view on this, chief U.S. interest rate strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence. And I want to continue the conversation because a lot of people are struggling here, thinking that normally when you print money, that is inflationary. Why is the bond market saying the exact opposite?
Yeah, I think for two reasons. I think one is that the quote unquote helicopter money that you just mentioned is really just replacing income and revenues that are going to be lost by a lot of businesses globally. Because the way that money gets into the economy is the Federal Reserve creates base money, right? Or any central bank creates what's called base money. And then banks go out and then lend money to other people, to their customers. And that's how money flows into the system. In an environment like this, you're not creating a lot of new money and a lot of loans that are going to be used to expand businesses. These are just going to be used to keep businesses afloat. So it's not necessarily inflationary where you're going to see hyperinflation, but it's designed in many ways to reduce the worst case deflation scenarios. And the market's kind of pricing for that because we're not pricing for consumer prices to go down a lot for a long period of time. So it's basically we're expecting prices to go down very quickly now, but then rebound to some level of like 1.5% a couple of years from now.
So, Ira, talk to us a little bit about the liquidity that we're seeing in the marketplace. That was really a concern a couple of weeks ago. Give us a sense of kind of where that is right now. Are the markets functioning, well at this stage?
Well, I would say they're functioning better than they were certainly last week and the week before, but they're still not to where they were, say, a month ago in late February when you were able basically to buy or sell a significant amount of risk. One of the reasons for that is at this point is actually the opposite problem than we had 2 weeks ago, which is, 2 weeks ago, basically bank balance sheets, banks and dealers were unwilling to take a lot of risk onto their books one way or the other, whether they were short rates or long rates. Now with the Federal Reserve purchasing, hundreds of billions of dollars of Treasury securities from the dealers every week, dealers are not left with a lot of securities on their balance sheet. So you've actually seen a couple of auctions that were undersubscribed. So basically, dealers didn't even offer enough bonds into these auctions for the Fed to buy all of them. So you're in an environment now where there's actually it's much easier to sell bonds for sure because the Fed's buying almost every bond that they can find. But at the same time, it's not normal market function.
Yeah, it's not normal market function when you see the Fed's balance sheet spike upwards. It's now about $5.25 trillion. That deleveraging period, the shrinking of the balance sheet happened for about 2 minutes there. I'm just wondering, Ira, we talked about this last time. Given the renewed assumptions and the expectations around the fiscal rescue efforts and beyond, how big is the central bank's balance sheet going to get eventually in this year or in the near future?
Yeah, so the Fed's balance sheet, our expectation is for it to basically double this year from where it was a couple of weeks ago, and then, well more than double over the next couple of years. And a big reason for that, though, and we have to revise that, too, now, because the Fed actually just came out with a new program this morning where it's going to allow foreign central banks to repo their treasury bonds, so that's going to expand the balance sheet even further. So it's going to get big, right? It's going to be a $10 trillion number, easy, if not more.
That's technical, Paul. It's going to get big. Carry on.
So one of the, but the size of the Fed's balance sheet, even though it's going to be really large, it's going to be very variable. And a lot of the programs that they're designing now are naturally going to go away. So it's likely, that we might spike the Fed's balance sheet over the next year or so to, 10, 11, 12 trillion dollars, but then it might naturally come back down to $7 or $8 billion just because they're going to own all these treasuries and probably hold them for a long period of time, probably forever, quite frankly. But some of these other programs, like the repo programs and the like, those will naturally shrink as the economy improves, hopefully, come 2021, 2022.
So, Ira, what's next for the Federal Reserve? Do they have any tools left in their toolbox?
Well, they have a lot of little tools, certainly for funding. I think, basically implementing the programs that have already been announced, I think has to be the next thing. Remember, most of the programs that were announced last week have not yet been implemented. So things like the commercial paper funding program, that's not going to be probably started till next week or the week after. You have the corporate bond buying program. And importantly, and I think this is the single biggest one for the overall health of the economy, is that Main Street funding facility. So the small and medium-sized enterprise facility run between the Treasury, the Small Business Administration, and funded by the Fed. That program has to get going and has to get going quickly if we're going to see a V-shaped kind of recovery over the next year. If not, then it's going to be much more of a U, in my opinion.
Ira Jersey, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your thoughts here. Ira Jersey, Chief U.S. Interest Rate Strategist for Bloomberg Intelligence, joining us on the phone. Lisa, so again, I think there's still, as Ira was suggesting, more for the Fed to do here. But I guess initially it's just to implement some of those programs that are, were announced last week.
Yeah, on Bloomberg Surveillance, Ira said that basically the Fed may end up owning the market. The bulk. At a certain point, if they're backstopping corporate bonds, they're backstopping commercial paper, they're backstopping treasuries. They're putting a foot on your entire portfolio.
Yeah, other central banks from around the world letting the convert to get the dollars and so on. So interesting, the Fed stepping up here. And we have to admit, the Fed was really aggressive and really, I think, out in front of this as much as it possibly could be. Yeah,
absolutely.
And right on. And then it's been fiscal stimulus since then, but the Fed has been right there. A little bit of green. We turned to green here a little bit. We have the S&P up 8, the Dow up 83 points. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks are lower this final trading day of the quarter, the worst since 2008. Investors at a crossroads questioning whether extraordinary economic stimulus by dozens of countries can counter the continued retrenchment of companies and consumers as the outbreak spreads. Oil heading for its worst quarter ever, down 65% since the end of December. Demand weakening by the day and producers refusing to cut output. Oil right now at $20 a barrel. American Airlines is applying for federal aid and will sweeten an offer of voluntary leave for staff as it slashes flights. CEO Doug Parker said the carrier will receive about $12 billion, and accepting the money means agreeing to no job or pay cuts through at least September. And Visa is warning that consumer spending has sharply declined, even online. This month, Visa cardholder spending has dropped 4% in the U.S. Overseas spending is down 19%. Courtney Dunhope, Bloomberg Radio.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets, and much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions. What if you could keep the top economic...
This week at Tesco, large Easter eggs are 3 for £8. And we've got a large choice too on all your favourite brands, including Terry's Chocolate Orange, Cadbury's and Maltesers. At 3 for £8, why shell out more? Tesco. Every little helps. Available in the majority of larger stores and online. Delivery charges may apply until 13th of April.
The moves may be choreographed, but the drama is real.
I dare you! I beg you to come down here right now!
Stay on top of everything happening in the pro wrestling universe with the Body Slamming podcasts on TuneIn. For passionate recaps of the most recent SmackDown, check out the What's Wrong with Wrestling show. And for a pro wrestler's perspective on life and culture at large, listen to Talk is Jericho. For these and more podcasts, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
A lot of people aren't aware that TuneIn lets you listen to the same terrestrial stations that you pick up on your FM AM dial, except you can hear them from anywhere. To see all the stations broadcasting in your area, find the local radio section on the home screen. Keep it local with TuneIn.
On this week's On the Media, we are awash in messages, but some messengers are more effective than others.
Ventilators, ventilators, ventilators. We need 30,000.
Meanwhile, some media outlets choose not to air the president's press briefings live, and media critics ponder what's the right balance between good information and all information. All that and more on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
Stay on top of everything happening in the pro wrestling universe with the Body Slamming podcasts on TuneIn. For passionate recaps of the most recent SmackDown to a pro wrestler's perspective on life and culture at large, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen.
Cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Right now, Doctors Without Borders medical teams are operating in some of the most remote and dangerous corners of the world. When front yards become front lines, at the crossroads of conflict and epidemic, where there are no hospitals, that's where we operate. Your response is critical to our response in places where few others will go. That's where we operate. Learn more at doctorswithoutborders.org.
News without analysis is like half a bridge.
Why is the debt to GDP ratio still so important?
Those things, once they're set in place, stay around for years.
Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and BloombergRadio.com. Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, oil is finishing up its worst quarterly results in the history books as we take a look at just absolute plummeting demand as well as surging supplies. We're going to talk about that. Plus, at this point, how much pain has been priced into stocks? Right now, let's find out where things are settling out with Greg Jarrett for Bloomberg Business Flash. Greg.
Well, these stocks erased earlier losses, but are having a bit of trouble hanging on to small gains. This after economic data topped estimates And investors continue to debate whether the market meltdown has ended, given the continued spread of the virus. We check the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P 500 is now up 0.25%, up 6. The Dow's up 0.3%, up 73. And the NASDAQ is up over 1%, up 85. 10 years up 14.30 seconds. The yield is 0.68%. West Texas Intermediate crude is up 2.8% at $20.67 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 1% at $16.26 even per ounce. The dollar yen, 108.08. The euro, $1.967. And the British pound, $1.2432. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
It's 10:33 on Wall Street. Time to check in with Bloomberg Opinion. We're joined by opinion columnist Julian Lee. He covers all things oil for Bloomberg Opinion. Julian, thanks so much for joining us. We've seen this incredible decline in crude. We've got, WTI crude about $21 a barrel right now. I know it's supply. I know it's demand. Give us a sense of how much of each is really driving oil down here.
I think at the moment it's mostly demand. We've had the Saudis and the Russians threatening to open the taps, and we're starting to see some of that oil perhaps beginning to move, particularly out of Saudi Arabia. They seem to have boosted shipments to storage tanks that they lease in the Mediterranean. We're seeing a little bit of an increase in shipments going towards the United States, but none of that oil has arrived yet. What we're really seeing, at the moment at least, is a response to a collapse in demand. There are estimates that demand this week is down by about 26% globally. That's as if the entire United States, Canada, Mexico, all of Central America, and all of the Caribbean stopped using any oil at all.
Well, that's kind of what it feels like. I mean, you look up and there are no airplanes in the sky, and you look out in the street here and there are no cars going by except for the horrible wail of ambulances, which we've been hearing as people are suffering throughout the city. I'm just trying to understand how much pain has been priced in, given the fact that we're running out of storage and that Saudi Arabia seems to have no intention of stopping with the production.
I think obviously a lot has been priced in. I mean, as you said, we're seeing WTI down around $20 a barrel, but some of the inland crudes that are finding it difficult to access storage space are even now trading in single digits. So they're a lot below the international benchmarks, and as you say, we're not seeing any end to the pressure. We're not seeing any significant uptick in road traffic. We're not seeing any of the airlines starting to talk about getting some of their fleet flying again. In fact, some of the biggest low-cost carriers in Europe have grounded their entire fleets in the last couple of days. So we're really not yet seeing any pickup in demand, and we still have this wave of additional oil that has been promised or threatened, making its way towards consumers who don't want it.
So, Julian, we had President Trump speak with Mr. Putin yesterday. Any sense of what they talked about, or whether there can be any movement there on the part of Russia?
I haven't got any detailed sense of what they talked about. I mean, we're hearing that they talked about energy and they talked about the virus and responding to it. My own take on it is that nobody is going to act unilaterally. Russia isn't going to do anything if it doesn't see other people sort of playing their part, and I think those other people include the United States. Saudi Arabia and Russia both see that their actions over the last 4 or 5 years have helped to spur a doubling of U.S. oil production, and quite frankly, I think their view is that this is too big for anybody to deal with on their own. We're all in this together. If we're going to cut back, we're all going to cut back, and that has to include American oil producers too.
Julian, if we could take a step back and talk about what happens when this period of time is over. Do you foresee the destruction in demand being something with permanent ramifications, people going to other sources of energy or changing their habits? Or do you think that once things get back on track, the economies globally start recovering, we're going to see oil bounce back up $45, $50 a barrel, maybe even $60 a barrel?
I certainly think we're going to see a recovery. Whether it's a complete recovery, I think is too early to tell yet. But I think that if this is a relatively short-term disruption, and if things are picking back up off the floor by even the autumn or the end of this year, I don't think that's long enough for people to have fundamentally changed their habits. People are going to go back to driving. They're probably going to go back to flying to the extent that restrictions allow them to do so. I think it takes a long-term disruption for people to really change their habits. I don't know of anyone at the moment who's saying, I'll never fly again, or I'll never travel overseas again. So I think things will come back. What the industry is going to look like when that happens, and the ability to meet that rising demand, I think is going to be another question.
Julian Lee, thank you so much for being with us. Julian Lee, Bloomberg Opinion columnist covering all things oil-related. Definitely a brutal time for the shale patch. We've seen a big sort of concern about a surge in bankruptcies among the U.S. oil producers. Meanwhile, big questions abound globally, particularly for developing markets, about what this means. A really interesting story that I was reading this morning, Paul, about the sovereign wealth fund in Norway having to actually start liquidating some of its positions. It's the biggest sovereign wealth fund in the world.
I was going to say it's the biggest, yeah.
In order to deal with the gaps in the budget that are tied to oil production. That they get. I mean, the ramifications are vast.
They are, and the ripple effects are just extraordinary. And you wonder about the Saudis here with oil at $20 a barrel. Yes, they can, get it out of the ground about half that cost, but they need, $70, $80 oil to support their economy. So some issues there that you would think they and Russia would get to the table.
You'd think. Not happening right now. Right now, let's head to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. Nathan Hager there with world and national headlines. Nathan.
Lisa, thank you. The number of confirmed coronavirus cases in the U.S. is rising by about 20,000 a day. Right now, there are nearly 165,000 infections in this country, 3,100 deaths, and New York remains the epicenter with more than 38,000 cases and 900 deaths in New York City alone. The Javits Center in Manhattan has been converted into a 3,000-bed field hospital. Lieutenant General Todd Semonite with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says it's not going to end there.
We're looking right now at around 341 different facilities across all of the United States, very similar to the Javits Center.
Dr. Anthony Fauci with the National Institutes of Health tells CNN he's starting to see glimmers that social distancing may be slowing the spread of COVID-19, but he says the situation remains dangerous. This pandemic has led to dire stories of medical workers running low on equipment and in some cases being forced to make their own. Bloomberg's Jeff Bellinger reports some hospitals have made that a firing offense.
An emergency room physician in Washington state says he is out of a job because he gave an interview to a newspaper detailing what he believed to be inadequate protective equipment and testing. In Chicago, a nurse was fired after emailing colleagues that she wanted to wear a more protective mask while on duty. In New York, the NYU Langone Health System has warned employees they could be terminated if they talk to the media without authorization. A spokesman says the policy is to protect patient and staff confidentiality. Jeff Bellinger, Bloomberg Radio.
The U.S. is shifting strategy on Venezuela, now calling on both President Nicolas Maduro and the opposition leader it's backed for more than a year, Juan Guaido, to both step aside. Global News, 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries, this is Bloomberg.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically. Yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SCI Investment Manager Services.
Determination and operational strength are both essential factors for growth in asset management. I'm Steve Meyer, President and Head of SEI's Investment Manager Services Division. We know that disruptive forces create opportunities around the world. If you see potential in change, our industry specialists will maximize SEI's integrated platform of data and risk management, global investment operations, compliance support, and investor services to position your asset management business for success. Come grow with us.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/C's change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Did you know that players of People's Postcode Lottery have raised over £500 million for charities and good causes? They've also won £47 million in prizes so far this year, and it could be your postcode next. Visit postcodelottery.co.uk/radio before midnight on the 23rd of April to play in the May draws. PPL managed lotteries on behalf of good causes. 16 plus, conditions apply, play responsibly.
Want to know a great way to discover the latest and greatest sports audio on TuneIn? It's easy. Just make sure push notifications are enabled on your phone to receive recommendations of sports talk, radio, and podcasts, along with important breaking news updates.
Are you curious what others are listening to on TuneIn? Head to the trending section under Browse to see the most popular stations and podcasts among TuneIn listeners right now. Check it out. You might just discover something new for yourself.
The moves may be choreographed, but the drama is real.
I dare you, I beg you to come down here right now!
Stay on top of everything happening in the pro wrestling universe with the body slamming podcasts on TuneIn. For passionate recaps of the most recent SmackDown, check out the What's Wrong with Wrestling show. And for a pro wrestler's perspective on life and culture at large, listen to Talk is Jericho. For these and more podcasts, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling.
Leave it to the New York Times to make the most intelligent pop music podcast out there.
Welcome to the New York Times Popcast.
On the Popcast, the Times music staff gets together for a weekly roundtable on the hottest topics in popular music. From award show autopsies and reactions to new releases to difficult-to-process scandals and emerging themes in the music landscape, hear distinguished music critics share their perspectives on the latest music news, songs, albums, and artists of note on the New York Times Popcast. Search and favorite Popcast to join the conversation.
On this week's On the Media, we are awash in messages, but some messengers are more effective than others.
Ventilators, ventilators, ventilators. We need 30,000.
Meanwhile, some media outlets choose not to air the president's press briefings live, and media critics ponder what's the right balance between good information and all information. All that and more on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
Working with BNY Mellon, we help alternative investment managers create great experiences for their clients. Whether it's customized financing, securities lending solutions, platform access, or outsourced trading, BNY Mellon's Pershing is a prime broker who's committed to this business and dedicated to meeting your evolving demands.
To learn more about the unique and industry-leading solutions for hedge funds and other alternative managers, visit Pershing.com. Pershing, LLC. Member FINRA, NYSE, SIPC.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash. This flash